لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Alhamdulillah, coming in our podcast today with the same topic, which is keeping Akidah Ahlus Sunnah wal Jamaah in the digital era. This is our third episode, and as we said from the beginning, that we will bring in some scholars to say some enlightenment to us about how are we keeping our Akidah and our Ahlus Sunnah wal Jamaah tradition in the digital era nowadays. So today we are blessed with the presence of Nadim Sheikh, scholars that will help us to give us enlightenment and then how's our Ahlus Sunnah wal Jamaah tradition that we can keep it up, with a lot of doubt that we have because of a lot of informations that are available in the internet. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Sheikh. It's good to have you here. Alhamdulillah. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, shukrillah. Can't complain.
How's the new baby?
Very good.
Alhamdulillah. It must be very busy for you.
Oh yes,
Love this.
Of course.
Yes, Sheikh. This podcast program. Basically, we are trying to give clearer educations. Like us who are grew up in the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jamaah tradition, we are growing up without knowing what was the background. Because our fathers told us to do, our neighbors, our grandfathers tell us, okay, you do this before Ramadan, you go to the grave. Every Thursday you recite Yasin,
Right.
without knowing. Because all the ulama doing it, and us as young people just follow what they're saying, cannot be wrong. But right now we are challenged by a lot of informations over the internet. As in today's world, everyone basically stop attending a forum to the ulama. So rather, they always go to the internet for the deen. And yesterday, Jamaluddin saw saying that's the bid'ah by itself. when you rely your knowledge or the matters of the deen, and instead of going to the ulama that has been the tradition since a long time, since the Prophet time or the Sahaba, then relying to internet alone is the bid'ah. So now, before saying anything, you have to do it right and keep it the right sunnah when you're seeking for the knowledge. So what we want to bring up right now, let's start with the same issues, which is us. When we are looking for something about deen, we Google it, and then in the Google there are a lot of opinion, that saying this bid'ah, that bid'ah, and then we start doubting ourselves, right? Like, we've been doing this one for years.
Exactly.
And now, as everyone's saying this, and then there's always common question in the internet, like, where's the dalil? Did the Prophet doing this or not? So, some people, they know the background, but many of us, I'm pretty sure, including myself, that we don't know the basis of doing that, to answer the dalil. But apparently there are some dalil, that Sheikh Nafa already brought up, Jamaluddin Hisaw yesterday also brought up. Yeah, basically it's not that bad. What we are doing, we have a dalil out of it.
For sure. Yes.
Yeah. So I want to start off from that tradition, from your perspective, before we go deeper into certain matters. So.
Bismillah walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم طالب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم. So this hadith, the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, he tells us learning the knowledge, al-ilm. He's using a definitive article here, so it's a specific type of knowledge. It's not any kind of knowledge. So this is our foundation. It is obligatory on all the Muslims, whether you're male, female, young, or old. And so alhamdulillah, you came from a background of Ahl Sunnati wal Jama'ah, whether it's the optional worships like reciting Yasin on Thursdays. We do that too in Ethiopia, actually, every Thursday. And so you have to have that same standard, unfortunately, that people only use in their dunya matters. For example, here in Georgia, if someone is very excited that their child got accepted at Georgia Tech, you ask yourself why? Because of their due diligence and research, they have seen Georgia Tech is a credible institution as opposed to other institutions.
Correct.
So why is it when it comes to our religion, which is far more valuable than our health, far more valuable than the schools we go to for Western studies, we don't have that same due diligence? And so when the Prophet ﷺ instructed us to get this knowledge, well, where do you start? Do you start on the internet? Do you start reading books? We have to remember what Umar ibn Khattab said, radiallahu anhu. He said, if the one learns from books, his mistakes will outweigh his corrections. So you have to do what? You follow the hadith of the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam. How did the Rasul learn? He learned from Jibreel, alayhi salatu wasalam, who teaches two things. One, knowledge is from teacher to student, and two, to be humble in the process of learning the knowledge. Because as we know, the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam is the greatest creation of all time, greater than Jibreel. But despite that, he learned from a creation that had a lower status than him. And so being humble, seeking the knowledge from those who learned it with that chain back to the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam takes you one step closer to safety.
MashaAllah. So yeah, I think that's already, outlines the foundations from our thinking, right? So like we have to seek the right knowledge, in our matters on the deen. So right now the next one, when we go little deeper, about the mazhab, there are a lot of opinions like why should we have mazhab? Like we can read it, we have brain to digest it, and why should we have to follow people who lived 100 years ago? So there are certain opinion, nowadays about that, because now available informations are available widely with all the translations. So they think I'm good. I can just open the internet and get the hadith, and then I can make my own fatwa. Why should I follow the mazhab? So, what's your opinion about following mazhab?
Well, anyone who claims that we don't have to follow the madhabs, I would respectfully ask them, well, are you going to take the time to go through the tens of thousands of ahadith? And if you want to add the riwayas, we're going to the hundreds of thousands, to make sure that when you make a fatwa, you're not contradicting other ahadith, or you're not contradicting other ayat of the Quran. For example, if you say, I can read the Quran, and a Shafi'i can read the Quran. طيب. So then we would ask them, what is the iddah of the woman? They might say, simple. They go through a verse of the Quran. The iddah in this ayah says 3 lunar months. But that's the iddah of the woman who does not have a menstruating cycle. How about the iddah of the woman who is pregnant? Her iddah is the termination of the pregnancy. So she is pregnant in month number 1. Now the 9th month when she gives birth, then that will be her iddah. But if you forgot about that ayah, or you never knew about that ayah, you would have given a wrong judgment. What's the implication of that? If someone thinks they are now permissible in getting married, they think their iddah is over, but in actuality they're not, you just facilitated someone to commit zina. So when someone says, we don't have to follow the madhabs, this is a statement of arrogance, because they don't realize when we go to Ash-Shafi'i, or Abu Hanifa, or Malik, or Ahmed ibn Hanbal, or Al-Awza'i, or other madahib that may not even exist today, what we're actually doing is relying on credible men who fit the criteria that the Sahaba went through, radiallahu anhu. There were Sahaba who had madhabs. Abu Bakr had a madhab. Aisha was a mushtahida. Were all companions mushtahidun? No. Those who memorized the Quran, memorized the hadith corpus, they were strong in nahu, they were strong in lugha. Many criteria were met for them to have it, to ensure that when they give the fatwa, is this permissible for me to do, is this haram, is this wajib, they went through the appropriate hadith and they understood it properly. But if someone, they just speak Ammiya, slang Arabi, and they're reading a Quran which is in Fusha, or the hadith that's in Fusha, then who's to say they truly understand what they're reading? They don't even understand their textbooks in the university, like biology, without their teacher explaining. So how about the religion?
Yeah, listening to your explanation, basically a lot of instruments before we can release any fatwa.
Anyway.
From the knowledge itself, yeah, I think I agree with you. Like there are certain hadith and Quran that seems like contradict, but actually, if we follow the explanations of the ulama, it's not. Like there are contexts for each of the right, like it's hadith and Quran. There is asbab nuzul, asbab wurud, and then the tradition, the habit of people that time. So there are a lot of perspective, like as a background, and then that's just the background, and then the instruments.
Exactly.
Do you have like do you memorize all the hadiths so that you can basically put the context and relations between hadith?
Exactly.
Yeah, and also I think usul fiqh, there are a lot of laws of assessing a hadith, right?
Right,
So
because
it's not as simple as you take it literally.
Yes, because you can come across the fatwa and say, okay, I just made a new fatwa, this is fiqh. But what's your usul, or what's your guiding principles for you to make this? For example, when do you use the mutawatir hadith? Can you use the da'if hadith for manners? Yes or no? Can you use the da'if hadith for aqidah? Yes or no? You have to have a guideline as opposed to treating all hadith as uniform. Because all hadith do not have the same strength, as we all know.
Yeah, and like the psychology, people look at a matter of deen, it's not involving to your money, your career, basically anything that worldly, right? So we take it lightly, but actually the weight is way, way heavier than whatever worldly related matters, right?
Of course.
But since we are da'if, I mean like human just looking at something from their eyes, right? Like all the worldly matters are real. I have to worry because they're real in front of me.
Exactly.
So they take it matters of deen as something abstract. So they don't feel
The gravity of the
the
situation.
gravity of the situation, and the need to be careful, need to be assessed properly. Like say if you are someone applying for a green card or whatever immigration matters, they will come to whom? They come to the lawyers.
Exactly.
They will ask your advice, even though you can read. But when it comes to matters of deen, I can do it myself.
Oh, Nana, do you know why they feel like that? If you want to think about it, in Islamic history, except for the past 101 years, we have had an Islamic caliphate. So, in other words, we've always had qadis, we've always had muftis, we've always had hufal, muhaddithin, up until my grandfather's generation, which is not very long ago. So, why, for example, do we want to make sure we're following the law? Because we don't want the police to arrest us. But the law or the authority that would police us is now gone.
Gone. Oh,
So we are now living in an era that is equivalent to living in a land with no police, no court, nothing but mayhem. But we have to remember, if you learn who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, Allah, He may not punish you or hold you to account in this life, but surely the day that He promised, we will be held to account. We may not have a mufti, we may not have a qadi to remind us, but this can actually be a good thing, because the believer is intelligent. The believer looks for any opportunity to maximize his reward. Didn't the Prophet ﷺ say, Tuba, yani, congratulations for the ghuraba. Who are the ghuraba? The strangers? Those who, in the time when my religion becomes corrupted, not by al-Yahud, not by the atheists, by Muslims. When the religion becomes corrupted, they rectify my religion what the Muslims have destroyed. So you get more reward, because we're not living in a time where we can just knock on the door of the qadi and say, what's the judgment of this? Can you help me with that? We live in a time where if you say the right religious judgment, Muslims are looking at you strange.
MashaAllah. Your statement is very heavy.
It is.
You know why?
MashaAllah.
Because I feel like, we cannot simply blame people who has knowledge to go to internet, because there's no place to turn into, because there's nobody's, like, there's no police station, there is no laws, basically it's my hand. So, in my opinion, it's our responsibility too, to establish a place that people who has a doubt can turn into. that has someone has with the sound knowledge, to answer any doubt, any questions.
Yes.
Inshallah, may our masjid will be the big, like the organization who start this.
Allah.
So we'll have a fatwa centers over here. We will have all the ulama, to discuss about all aspect of life that related to deen, so that people can they can refer to, instead of going to internet. Of course, they're going to internet because maybe they don't know. They don't know who should I trust to.
That is a very
So
good
maybe
dua
like-
to make.
Yeah, people like yourself, say, it could be like in this body.
There's Muslims better than me, and I'm not just saying that out of humility. We have to know our place as Muslimin. Someone can have knowledge, but another layer we have now is, do these scholars have sincerity or not? Or the mashayikh, or the student of knowledge? Because we don't have these governing bodies like the khalifa, the qadi, the mufti, etc. How about if someone makes a mistake on purpose or on accident? Because, for example, before, how did the scholars used to make money? From the Islamic treasury, right? And so they are guaranteed a salary because they are now qualified to teach, whether it's hadith corpus, or the tafsir, or fiqh, or aqidah, etc., all these beautiful divine sciences. But now, the name of the game, unfortunately, in the West, because we do not have an Islamic treasury, Muslims are not paying their zakat across a large scale.
Exactly.
So guess what? Now there's more emphasis on fundraising, and if I fundraise, I can't talk about the truth sometimes because it might get me in trouble.
That's true.
And so it's not just having people of knowledge, people who are sincere in the knowledge. Yani, they love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more than they love the people. If the people turn on them tomorrow, they are content with the acceptance of Allah. So may Allah grant us the ulama and the mashayikh who have the knowledge and the sincerity. Because we have Ahlul Sunnah, they're alive today. They're on the internet, they're in the deserts, they're in Indonesia, Habasha, Syria, Palestine, they're everywhere. But what made them weak? Some of them, they don't have money because they're not being supported. Or they are in competition with other Islamic sects. Or the Sunni scholars who finally got a platform, they sold their religion at an unworthy price. So sincerity, as we know, that's the last level the salih has to reach before they become a wali. Yani to reach wilayah, the last test is sincerity. Because you can see if someone commits the sin of the hand, of the tongue, of the foot, but sincerity is a place of the heart. It's very hard to gauge. So may Allah protect us from riyah.
So, yeah, this discussion is lead us into something bigger. I know I'm a dreamer. We all here are dreamer. We started this masjid without any money. With very limited money. Alhamdulillah, it's open. We have a good number of brothers and sisters visiting this masjid. Alhamdulillah. So we might, we have 4 pillars in this masjid, which is religion, business, education, and social service. So the religion and social service can be combined, and inshallah, maybe we can establish something like a fatwa center, or something like Qadi, but it's not Qadi, because Qadi Qadi is like official bodies, right?
Exactly.
So at least we can copy what our ulama in the past, how they lay out, how they recruit, how they take the fatwa, so that we can put it together here, so that people who has a doubt, has any question, they come over here. If we cannot answer it based on the data, we can contact, at least we can establish a contact communications with them.
Exactly.
Yeah, a lot of things we have to do, like especially we live here not in the Islamic world. So yeah, may Allah bless us with the ideas and way to establish
Yes.
the bodies that can address the Muslim needs in terms of knowledge, in terms of fatwa, inshallah.
In that vein, when you look at the Islamic history, in the battles like Badr, Uhud, or all the other Islamic battles, you would see many times that Muslims are numerically outnumbered. So you would wonder, how do they win time and time again, to the extent where the Muslims have spread across the whole entire world? It's because they had taqwa. Taqwa, which is what? God-fearingness, God-consciousness. What is the definition of taqwa? Taqwa means when nobody is looking, you worship Allah. When everybody's looking, you still worship Allah. even if it may be inconvenient for your worldly life. And so when we try to work towards these goals, because I'm ambitious like yourself, you said just a few moments ago, we're not living in this strong Islamic world. The companions had it worse. They lived in a world of idol worship and Christianity and Buddhism and all these other religions. And they worked until what? There's companions. There's Sahaba that are buried in China. There are 12 Sahaba buried in Ethiopia. They're all throughout the world. What does this show us? Their maqams show us that they didn't give up. They didn't have internet. They didn't have fundraisers, but they had ikhlas. So maybe there's a secret behind this place being called Masjid al-Ikhlas. May Allah grant us.
MashaAllah, MashaAllah. Yeah. So how many minutes?
20.
20 minutes, yeah. Our program is 30 minutes, so we have 10 minutes to discuss more. Yeah, inshallah. So I have to note it that we're gonna have a fatwa center in here, inshallah. So we'll encourage people to support these bodies, not for our benefit, but to have a proper way to address our our matters in the deen, inshallah. And next, we were talking about salawat, like on the first episode, and then we are talking about zikr in the groups. And I don't know if you're comfortable talking about ziyarah.
Okay.
So what's barakah of the ziyarah? What's the tradition of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah? What's the adab visiting? And what's the benefit? What's the virtue for us who are living? And what's the virtue for the people who are already deceased?
Yeah, of course I'm comfortable talking about it. May Allah protect us from
Ameen,
cowardice.
ameen, ya Allah.
In regards to ziyarah of the deceased awliya, the shuhada, the salihin, etc., right? So we have to remember that we live in a non-Muslim country. How do the non-Muslims in this country, through television and newspapers, even at work, how do they view death and how do Muslims view death? How the non-Muslims view death is very scary. When they walk in the graveyard, there's the cartoons, they have like a lightning bolt, and they see skulls, and they make it seem very spooky. But the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, what does he tell us? The intelligent one remembers death often. And in this country, they want us to forget death. You only live life once. They have so many phrases like this. You only live life once, live life to the fullest, c'est la vie. In Islam, we don't think of death as a scary place. We see it as something that we hope that when we die in a good state. Because the life that we want to enjoy is permanent in the next life if we're successful. So in regards to doing ziyarah, some might say, oh, you're grave worshipping. Is the Muslim not supposed to do husn al-dhan? If you go to a grave of a pious Muslim, are you saying, Ya Fulan, Ya Zayd, forgive my sins? La. We believe in Al-Quran. And Al-Quran says what? Do not say the shuhada, yani the martyrs are dead. Surely they're alive in their graves. If this is the case of a shaheed, how about a wali? How about a prophet? And so we know that the prophets are alive in their grave, alayhi salam. And if anyone denies this, then would they say all the Muslims for 1400 years committed shirk when doing ziyarah to the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam? And we have benefited from prophets who are not alive. Because we have to remember Allah creates the benefit. For example, during Isra al-Mi'raj, how many salah were we ordained with? 50. And the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, when he left, he saw Musa. And Musa asked him, what did you receive? He said, 50 salah. He said, go back to your Lord. Doesn't mean Allah is in a place, but rather go back to the place of revelation. And he said, ask for a reduction. So 5 by 5 by 5, it came back down to 5. And Musa alayhi salam said, I know my people. They weren't even able to handle 2 prayers a day. If there's 5 prayers, ask for a reduction. Our Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, I'm too shy to ask for any more. So Musa alayhi salam, a dead man, benefited our nation. How do we reconcile this? So are we all committing shirk by praying 5 times a day? Because we are engaging in worship in which we benefited from a deceased man. Or did the Prophet ﷺ commit shirk when he was in Masjid al-Aqsa and he prayed with approximately 124,000 prophets during Isra al-Mi'raj? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he has our souls extracted, and when He orders the angels to extract our soul, it's not like the non-Muslims say, death equals erasure. La. Rather, it is a transfer from a dunya to the barzakh. It's a different realm. And from al-barzakh to the akhirah. So if you go to the deceased and you do ziyarah, you treat them like you would treat someone alive. Can you not ask your mom for dua?
Yeah.
Oh, how about if someone says, ask Allah, why are you using your mom as intermediary? Do you use medicine to cure you? Is this shirk? Because you could just ask Allah for the shifa. La, these are means. And you have to remember, as long as you know the aqeedah of the Muslims, which is what? Allah creates the cure. Allah answers the dua. Allah has the power to do all these things. But rather, praying in the masjid and making dua there as opposed to home is a means for your dua to be answered. Asking your mother for dua is a mean for your dua to be answered. Asking the traveler, asking the shaykh, the salih who's alive is a means. And likewise, one who's deceased, if Allah granted him a high status, He can create the barakah there, just like He created barakah at the Kaaba. On the flip side, there are places Allah created that have no barakah, that are damned, like the shopping centers. Then the Rasul alayhi salam said the best place on earth is the masjid, and the worst are the shopping centers. So Allah creates a benefit or harm in the creations. And we remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who creates the benefit or harm. Not the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, not the wali in the grave, and surely not the medicine, the seatbelt, or our mother.
Okay, so that means like we are visiting the ulama is to get the barakah from the not asking from them, but it's like the intercession, right?
You can ask them to make dua for you because they're alive in the grave.
So they're alive. Yeah.
You can ask them to make dua for you, but to ask them, can you answer my dua? Of course, it's a shirk.
Yeah.
But why would you assume ill of a Muslim if you see him at the grave of the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam and his hands are like this? Why would you assume and think ill of your fellow brother? That he's worshipping the Rasul. The Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, he hears. That's why we say, Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah. Assalamu alaikum, yani it's directed towards the Rasul. Not may peace and blessings be upon him, may peace and blessings be upon you, ya Rasulullah. So he hears. Then the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam saying, my life is good for you and my death is good for you. This hadith says what? Ask for my death, because someone might ask, how does the death become good for us? There's an angel who presents the state of my ummah. If I see khair, I ask Allah to bless you guys. And if I see the state of my ummah is in a bad situation, I ask Allah to guide you and forgive you. That's the benefit if you ask me.
So, if we can ask dua to the deceased, especially like the Nabi, the ulama, wali. So, like for example, if we are visiting Al-Madinah, you know, the Masjid Nabawi. So, what we're supposed to do? Like, what is the adab, like the good things to do, like based on your own experience?
So again, this is based on knowledge, right?
No,
We don't go on the internet or YouTube. We learn
Yeah.
from someone who has the chain.
Personally, I don't know. I just follow what my heart says.
Of
So,
course.
but I want to get like the information from you that you
So
have
the
knowledge.
akhlaq is first you face the grave of the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah. Then you step 1 cubit, which is about 1.5 feet to the right. Assalamu alaikum ya Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. One more to the right. Assalamu alaikum ya Umar ibn al-Khattab. Then you go back to the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam and you pray for the Rasul. You say salawat upon him. Because we're not greedy. We don't just ask for dua. We give dua too. Ya Allah, raise the rank, honor, and prestige of our Rasul. And if you have a need, you ask the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam and keep mindful, there's angels around. You ask him to supplicate for you. You ask him to pray for you because he's alive in the grave. Right? Musa, he advised the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam when he saw his father Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam during Isra Miraj, the Prophet Ibrahim, he prayed for the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. MashaAllah. So the akhlaq is to start with the basmala, walhamdulillah, wa salat ala nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And if you have a need, you ask him, please make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless me with X, Y, and Z.
Okay. Alhamdulillah. I think I'm doing the same way. Alhamdulillah. So just the last one, you know, like in Indonesia we have a tradition that before Ramadan or before Eid, we are visiting our parents' grave. So, what do you see on this matter, like a visiting parents' grave?
MashaAllah.
You know, like you already explained that asking barakah from the ulama grave, nabi, awliya, but now like how about parents?
So again, we go back to the knowledge. Imam al-Bulqini, rahimahullah, he mentions when talking about uquq al-walidain wal birru al-walidain, yani harming the parents and good treatment towards the parents. He said it is good treatment to visit your deceased parents. Yani this is a sign of respect. So if this parent, they raised you, they changed your diaper when you were unable to take care of yourself as a baby, they gave you pocket money, they protected you from the elements with lodging and clothes. Someone might say, this is their job. SubhanAllah, many people don't do their job. It would shock me for someone to be so greedy to not send the Fatiha to their parents. Ya Arhamar Rahimeen, have mercy on them, for they had mercy on me when I was younger. MashaAllah. So to visit the parents, this is birrul walidain, this is good treatment of the parents. And as we know, didn't the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam say, the sins that you do in a dunya, the punishment is delayed until the afterlife, except for one sin, that is mistreatment of the parents. The punishment for that happens in this life. So this is why many humble brothers and sisters, when they look at the calamities in their life, they say, it's probably a result of how I treat my parents. So when you go to the grave of your parents, if they're awliya or salihin, mashallah, ask them for dua. But if they're just common Muslims, they're in need of your dua. Make dua for them. If you can, recite Fatiha for them every week after Jum'ah, or after every obligatory prayer, or every time you recite Yasin, or Surah Al-Mulk. It only takes a few seconds to say, Ya Allah, I ask you to send a similar reward to my parents. Perhaps that could be the difference between hellfire and paradise for them on Yom Qiyamah.
So it's like the the act of helping our parents, you know, like make them happy that we are care, we are still visiting them, and then make dua for them so that they will have good situations in the grave, right?
We have to be better than the stem. What do I mean by the stem? The Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam said in an authentic hadith, if you take a moist stem and you plunge it in the grave of the deceased Muslim, it'll make dhikr, yani istighfar for this Muslim until it dries out. So how are we going to let a stem make more istighfar for our parents and us? We're not going to let the flower beat us, inshallah. Because the Muslim has a high status. The Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam said, the believer has a higher status than the Kaaba. Allah honored us with this high status. And so we have to fulfill that honor that Allah gave us. We have to show gratitude to Allah, which is by what? Showing gratitude to those who are good to us and who's better than us, better for us than our mashayikh and our parents.
MashaAllah. So we are in 30 minutes. Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh. It's really useful information. May Allah bless you, guide you, and make it easy for you to spread your knowledge and helping others, other fellow Muslims.
May Allah grant us the knowledge and sincerity of all.
So we are, let's conclude from today's episode, and we will keep coming with the new sources, new scholars to address all the knowledge behind the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah traditions, so that there will be no doubt in our heart and we'll be more firm in what we are doing. So we will be, as Sheikh said, that our action is to be based on knowledge. So we've been doing a lot of traditions without knowledge, but now is the time for us to make it better. You know, like the tradition create the habit, have good habit, but now it will be make it more strong and firm when we know the knowledge.
Inshallah ta'ala.
Inshallah ta'ala. Alhamdulillah, let's conclude this program, and inshallah we'll see you for the next episode. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This is a podcast.